in my small, drafty apartment wrapped in a blanket when my phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was a group text from my mother, Sarah. I picked it up, expecting a reminder about what dish to bring to the family gala. Instead, the message was cold, direct. And final, we have agreed, it is better if you do not come to the gala this year. Nicholas is uncomfortable with your attitude. Seconds later, a notification popped up. My sister Mara had hearted the message. I stared at the screen, waiting for the hurt to hit me, waiting for the tears to sting my eyes. But they didn't come. I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. I just felt a strange, cold clarity settle over me. I typed one reply, perfect, you will not see me again either. Then I looked up at Julian, who was sitting across from me, watching me with that quiet intensity of his. He nodded. Once it begins before I tell you what I did next, and how I turned their perfect Christmas into a nightmare they cannot wake up from. Drop a comment and let me know where you are listening from and what time it is for you right now. I want to see how far this story travels. I set the phone down on the warm coffee table, the message still glowing on the screen. Julian leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. His eyes locked on mine. He didn't offer empty platitudes or tell me family is everything. He didn't tell me to be the bigger person. He just said two words, his voice low and steady. It is time. I looked at him, really looked at him. To my family, Julian was just the quiet guy who drove an old sedan and never had much to say at dinners. They saw a nobody. I saw the man who had held me while I shook from nightmares about Nicholas. I saw the man who had quietly, methodically helped me build a fortress around my life while they were busy trying to tear it down. I stood up, the blanket fallen away. I walked to the closet and pulled out the garment bag I had hidden in the back 3 months ago. I didn't reach for the travel bag. I wasn't packing to leave town. I was dressing for war. I pulled out the dress. It was sharp, professional, a deep emerald green that made me look like I owned the room, not like I was apologizing for being in it. Julian went to the bedroom and came out wearing a suit that looked deceptively simple, but I knew better. It was tailored perfectly, the fabric dark and expensive. He put on his glasses, the ones he only wore when he was working on a deal. And suddenly, the quiet boyfriend was gone. In his place was someone dangerous. We didn't say a word as we got ready. The silence wasn't heavy, it was focused. It was the silence of soldiers checking their weapons before a battle. About why had they chosen Nicholas? Why had my parents looked at the man who left bruises on my arms and seen a son while looking at me and seeing a problem? I remembered the night I came home with a black eye, stumbling into the kitchen, begging for help. My mother had looked at me not with horror, but with annoyance. She had told me I must have provoked him. She had told me Nicholas was under a lot of stress as a CEO, that I needed to be more understanding back then. I thought they were blind. I thought if I just explained it better, if I just showed them the pain, they would wake up. But as I watched the familiar road wind toward the mansion, I finally let myself see the truth. They weren't blind. They were bought to accept that Nicholas was a monster. Would mean accepting that they had sold their daughter for safety. It would mean facing the fact that their comfortable life, a truth too ugly to bear, it rewrites reality. My parents didn't want to be monsters, so they made me the villain in their version of the story. Laura's the problem, Nicholas is the provider. It was easier to sacrifice my sanity than their lifestyle. And that realization didn't make me sad anymore, made me furious, made my blood run hot and fast. I looked over at Julian, his hand resting on the gear shift, steady and calm. We weren't going to beg for a seat at their table tonight. We were going to foreclose on it. We pulled up to the iron gates of the Henderson estate, the gravel crunching beneath the tires of Julian's modest sedan. To anyone else, this place looked like a dream. The sprawling colonial mansion was bathed in warm golden light, with tasteful wreaths in every window, and a Christmas tree that soared 2 stories high in the foyer. The driveway was a parade of luxury. SUVs and German sports cars, a testament to the family's supposed success. But as I looked at the pristine white columns, I didn't see a home. I saw a shell company. I saw a monument built on tax evasion and shadow loans. We walked up the steps, the cold winter air biting at my cheeks. I could hear the murmur of conversation and the soft clinking of crystal from inside. I didn't knock. I opened the door and stepped into the warmth. The conversation died instantly. It was like someone had cut the power of the string quartet in the who had spent years hearing stories about how unstable and difficult I was, stared at me like I was a ghost. My mother, Sarah, was the first to. A mask of panicked fury. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin through my sleeve, and hissed in a voice low enough not to disturb the donors, but loud enough to cut. What are you doing here? We told you to stay away, and why did you bring him? She cast a look of pure, unadulterated disdain at Julian. To her, in his off-the-rack suit and quiet demeanor, he was nothing. He was a stain on her perfect tapestry. She looked at him like he was the help, like he should have been using the service entrance before. I could answer. The crowd parted. Nicholas emerged. He looked impeccable. I will give him that. He was wearing. He walked with that easy, predatory grace of a man who has never been told no. He didn't look angry. He looked amused. He walked right up to us, ignoring me completely. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a crumpled $5 bill, and tucked it into Julian's breast pocket. Why don't you be a good lad, and go, move your car around back. You are blocking the view of the Porsches. My father Gregory walked up behind him and let out a bark of laughter. He clapped Nicholas on the shoulder, beaming at him with a pride he had never once shown me, you tell him. My sister Mara was smirking behind her champagne glass. I felt the heat rise in my chest, the old instinct to shrink, to apologize, to run away, but... Then I looked at Julian. He didn't flinch. He didn't get angry. He looked at the $5 bill, then up at Nicholas and gave him a small, polite smile. It was the smile of a wolf watching a sheep explain why it shouldn't be eaten. I will keep this safe, Julian said softly. My mother shed us toward a corner table, far away from the center of the room, treating us like an embarrassing stain she couldn't scrub out. She thought she was putting us in our place. She didn't realize she was locking herself in a cage with the only people who held the key. They thought they were royalty holding court. They didn't realize it yet. But the room had already fallen. The kingdom had been taken. The morning before dinner was just the ceremony. White-gloved servers drifted through the hall like spirits, placing filet mignon in front of people who had sold pieces of themselves to afford it. I didn't eat. I observed. I watched my father, Gregory, rise and tap a silver spoon against his crystal glass. Already on fire, he just couldn't smell the smoke. He lifted his glass toward Nicholas, the guest of honor, the man everyone had gathered to praise. To Nicholas, my father declared loudly, the son I never had. Polite laughter followed, obedient and empty. Then his gaze found me. In the far corner, there was no affection in it, only provocation. You see, he continued, lowering his voice for effect. In life, some children drain us. They take and take until there's nothing left. A pause, and others sustain us. They step up, they save us. He raised his glass higher. We are truly blessed to have Nicholas steering this ship. Applause thundered through the room. Nicholas didn't act humble. He looked like a predator, enjoying the spotlight, relaxed, satisfied. He leaned back with a grin shared only with my father, a look that said this world belonged to them. They thought this was my execution. They expected me to shrink, to disappear beneath their approval. But I wasn't shrinking. I was calculating. Every comparison replayed in my head. Why can't you be more like Nicholas? Nicholas understands power. Nicholas knows how to control people. They had worshipped the hand that hurt me because it fed them till they traded my safety for silence. They dismantled me piece by piece. Tonight I found my voice again, and it cut. I stood. My chair scraped violently across marble. The sound cracked through applause like a gunshot. Head snapped around my mother's eyes, widened in warning. Her lips shaped sit down. I didn't. I projected my voice to the back of the room. Is he your savior because he pays your bills, Dad? My tone was calm, almost casual, or because he knows about the tax fraud. The silence collapsed, thick, suffocating. My father's color drained instantly. His glass trembled, wine nearly spilling. Then came the reflex, the cover-up. My mother jumped up. She's unstable, she cried desperately to the guests. This is why we didn't invite her. She's imagining things. My sister sneered across the table. God, Laura, you're humiliating yourself. Sit down or leave. They'd done this for years. Gaslighting polished into instinct, but I wasn't confused anymore. I had proof. Nicholas stood. Make me small. You're causing a scene, he said quietly. Maybe you need another reminder of your place. His hand twitched. Subtle. I knew that motion. I knew the pain behind it, but I wasn't alone anymore. Nicholas snapped his fingers too. Guard stepped forward. Remove her. If she resists, dragged her. The air shifted. Julian moved. Not aggressive, not loud. He simply placed himself between us. A door slamming shut, he reached into his jacket, pulled out wire-rimmed glasses, put them on. The transformation was instant. The quiet driver vanished, replaced by authority. A guard reached for my arm. Julian raised one hand, didn't look at him. Touch her, and you'll face assault charges before your next paycheck clears, assuming your checks don't bounce. The guard froze. Nicholas scoffed. You're the help. Know your place. Julian smiled. Cold, precise, he opened his briefcase, slid a heavy card across the table. I am Julian Vance, senior partner at Sterling & Vance. The room inhaled. They dismantle corporations. Someone whispered. Julian continued, I represent the sole lien holder of this property. My father shot up. I owned this house. No, I said, dropping the red folder on the table. You? He did. I turned to the room. My parents created a shell company to hide this estate from the IRS, then took predatory loans to maintain appearances. I bore the debt, my mother whispered. I couldn't afford it. I can now. I leaned forward. I owned the debt, the LLC, and the chair you're sitting in. Nicholas laughed, ugly wet. One thing, he pulled out a flash drive. Evict us, and this goes to the IRS. Your parents didn't just hide the house, they hid millions. My parents broke. I smiled. Will of Eleanor Henderson, a $5 million trust. Unlocked only if my family attempted extortion. You didn't threaten me, I said softly. I turned to security. I own the company that pays you. Removed the trespassers. They were dragged into the snow. The door closed. Silence. Julian exhaled. So you own a mansion? No, I said. I own freedom. We went home to something smaller, cleaner, real. My inheritance wasn't money. It was walking away and never looking back.